Hello dreamers! Welcome back to A Dream in Japan. If you're new here, hello, hajimemashite, my name is Adria, and I'm guessing that you have found my videos because you are waiting to come to Japan on the JET program, and you are one of the 5,000 or so ALTs stuck in their home countries waiting to get here. Well, let me tell you, for the 2,000 ALTs left in Japan, we are waiting for you to get here too. However, there's a very good chance that Corona, or the coronavirus, COVID-19, is going to greatly affect what happens to you when you arrive in Japan. So today we're going to talk about your post-arrival journey due to the coronavirus. This is part 2 in my video series about the corona consequences. If you didn't watch part 1, please hop over and check that out. I've posted the link up here. That's going to talk about why you may not have been contacted by your predecessor or your school yet and give you a little bit of insight into that. If you've already watched that, then today we're going to talk about 3 main points in your post-arrival journey. First is going to be quarantine, which I'm sure you're curious about. I'm basing my info on the trial group of about 90 ALTs that came in early July. I'm also going to discuss your options if you are bringing dependents with you to Japan. Second, we're going to talk about arrival in your prefecture and what you can expect in terms of your apartment, maybe apartment hunting since you didn't have a predecessor. And lastly, we're going to talk about making friends without orientation, welcome parties, and other things due to the coronavirus and what you can do to make friends. These are the 3 major differences that I expect you as a 2021 coronavirus ALT will experience. Despite some of the bigger hurdles, such as finding a new apartment and going through quarantine, you're still going to have a great time. You make quite a bit of money on the JET program, and not having 100 welcome parties will definitely save you some money. Let's get started. First, let's talk about quarantine. So in a normal JET year, what usually happens is you arrive in Tokyo, you spend 3 days at a fancy hotel, they provide you with some, albeit maybe crappy meals, and you get to go out in Tokyo for a little bit and sit through some boring conferences. Oops, forgot to mention that you get to meet the other newbies that are going to be close to you. But due to the coronavirus, I'm sure you know as well as I do that you're not going to have a normal Tokyo orientation. According to the ALTs that arrived in Japan in July 2021, this is about what you can expect after your arrival as long as quarantine is still happening. Basically, this year, you won't be meeting the people that you leave with. You maybe see each other going through your coronavirus checks at the Narita airport, and then you're going to basically be shuttled right off to the designated quarantine hotel chosen and paid for by the JET program. Now, it's only paid for if you are a JET participant. So if you're bringing dependents, I'm going to talk about that at the end. If you're coming from high-risk countries or states, I've posted the website link in the description showing the countries that are marked for high risk by Japan. And this is as of mid-August, and this data keeps changing. For the United States, it's individual states listed as high risk, as you can see in this picture, again, as of August 2021. So before your departure date, whenever you get that information, please check that link in the description again, read it very thoroughly to make sure that you understand so that you know and are mentally prepared for the fact that if you're from one of these high-risk countries, you're going to be submitted to a more strict 3-day quarantine upon arrival. So you will most likely be separated from the rest of the cohort. You'll go to a specific paid by the Japanese government hotel for 3 days. Then you'll be taken back to Narita and go to the hotel with all the other ALTs. Now, your quarantine, you will be in a room by yourself unless you have dependents with you. You cannot leave that hotel. During your 14-day quarantine, you will have some material from the JET program mimicking orientation. So according to the ALTs that came in, they said that they had some website links and videos and things that they needed to watch on a mobile device or laptop And that was all that their orientation really consisted of. In addition to that, you have to check in with the Japanese health monitoring system every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. So it's very important that you have a smartphone, that you've downloaded the apps in advance. Breaking the quarantine rules and leaving the hotel would be extremely bad, so please don't even try to think about that and go exploring Tokyo. You will have a better, safer time to explore Tokyo. You can't leave the hotel room unless you're going to the convenience store that's in the lobby of the hotel, or if you're going to do your laundry. Heard that laundry costs about $6 or 600 yen. These two things are the only additional costs that you're going to have during quarantine. I and many other people on the Return to Japan support groups highly suggest that if you would like hot food, since you'll only be getting cold bentos, aka lunch boxes, that you bring some of your own things. Things that have been recommended by people can be made only with hot water, since you'll have an electric kettle in your room. Things like hot oatmeal, instant dissolvable soups, or instant mac and cheese, especially if you have dependents. Around 3 days before the end of your quarantine, they ask you to pack up your big suitcase and they're going to ship it to your placement. So that's going to cost you somewhere between $20 and $60. That's a normal fee that everybody pays no matter the year. Once your 14-day quarantine is over, it sounds like they coordinate you to get together with the people who are going on the same plane to your placement prefecture. And that may be the first and only time that you meet the other people in your group that are going to the same prefecture. So if you meet them, definitely get their contact information so that you have some other people to talk to. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the cost for dependents. Keep in mind that even during a normal year, it is always the responsibility of the family or the jet to pay for the dependents' hotel fees and plane tickets. No matter when you come into the jet program, you're always paying because you have the plane flight from your home country to Japan. That's at least $1,200 US, if not more. Then you also have to pay for the domestic plane flight from Tokyo to your placement, and that's usually in the $200 range. Plus you pay to ship additional luggage. Currently, we don't have any estimates on actual costs. However, there is a Facebook group called Jet Couples and Families, which I highly suggest that you join. Some incoming ALTs have been listing their costs that the jet program gave them for their dependents, and it was anywhere from $3,000 upwards of $4,000. And that included plane flight from country, hotel quarantine, and plane flight to placement. To me, I would assume if you're bringing children, it's a little bit less, but it's going to depend on the age of the children. So if you are bringing dependents in, it sounds like the hotel costs like about $1,500 for the quarantine part. If you are trying to find a way to reduce that cost, definitely join the Return to Japan support group. It's actually hosted by a company called Metro Residences. I'm not paid promotion. They have some kind of Airbnb situations that they are renting, as well as hotels. They also take care of the quarantine taxis or shuttles from the airport. So it's a wealth of information if you want to try to save money. So if you're bringing dependents and one of them is an adult, I would highly suggest that you book separate accommodation for your spouse and children to stay in. You can probably get a slightly cheaper quarantine location that's maybe a little bit more comfortable if you have children, something that has a kitchen and you can order grocery service. If your spouse is able to take care of your kids. Obviously, if you only have a spouse, you can definitely find slightly cheaper separate accommodations, but then they're going to have to fly to your prefecture separately as well. The other option is leaving your dependent in your home country. I know I sound crazy, but you could leave them and wait to see if quarantine restrictions lift in the near future. But I really cannot guarantee when. I have no idea. Japan has been very slow to lift restrictions, obviously. So dependents are a huge additional startup fee and something you do really need to think of. Please, if you have any additional questions, please ask them in the Jet Couples and Families Facebook page. They are very helpful and they'll definitely give you good advice. Okay, So now you and the few other ALTs going to your area all get on a plane and fly to your prefecture. Finally, you're so close. But if you watched my last video, you'll know that you most likely don't have a predecessor anymore. So what does that mean for you? This is the update to my startup cost video. So if you haven't watched my startup cost video, please check that out. I really tried to give a pretty good breakdown of the normal initial costs for ALTs with and without a predecessor. But for almost everybody coming in during Corona, I predict that pretty much you're all going to be in the without a predecessor category, which means it's going to be a little bit more expensive to start up. If your predecessor left, your apartment is probably empty because they probably tried to get as much money as they could for the stuff that they needed to sell. If you were a 2020 ALT, your ALT has been gone for over a year. So the chance that a landlord was willing to hold furniture and other things and keep your apartment empty for a year is pretty rare. My successor is very lucky because my landlord was willing, because I lived in the Inaka and the chance of filling the apartment was pretty slim, to keep everything because that more or less guaranteed him a tenant even if he had to wait a year. Thanks, landlord. I really miss you. It's a very rare chance that your predecessor was able to do that. So more than likely you're coming into relatively nothing. There is a chance that maybe a neighboring jet maybe kept some things for you, bigger things, maybe like a stove or refrigerator if they could. There's also a chance that your school found a place to store things like a refrigerator and a stove because they knew you were going to need those. And that's definitely a question to ask when you get contact from your school. So if you're not in one of those scenarios, more than likely your advisor, who's going to be kind of your contact person, either at your BOE, if you were a city jet, aka you're teaching at elementary and junior high schools, or your advisor, which is going to be your lead Japanese teacher of English at your base school, if you're a prefectural jet or a high school ALT. Those people will eventually contact you. They may tell you, we have 2 apartments you can choose from. They may tell you, we will put you in a hotel for a few days while you look at some apartments with an agency. They may tell you that you have to pay for the hotel while you look for an apartment. If you're a prefectural ALT, there is a chance that if you're in a slightly larger city, that you'll get put into a teacher housing, government housing. This is very, very cheap but old. If you get offered that, it's okay to ask about the quality and the age of the apartment before saying yes, but you could be paying pennies for an apartment that's pretty big. I talked more about that in my startup cost videos for city jets. So having some basic expectations of what to look for in an apartment is very important. So in my video for next week, I am actually going to make a list of what to keep your eye out for when you are apartment hunting in Japan. So please subscribe to my channel so that you know when I post that video to help you be better informed about what to look for when you're apartment hunting in Japan. After you've chosen your apartment, you're going to need to find some furniture, and I estimated in my apartment startup cost video that you need to bring an extra US $1,000 to basically furnish an apartment, because most Japanese apartments don't come with major appliances, lighting, air conditioners, etc. So there's always foreigners in every area who are leaving and going. So there's a good chance that there's a Facebook group where you can buy from people who are leaving. Think of it kind of like Facebook Marketplace, Gumtree, or Craigslist. And if your prefecture doesn't have those things, you could also ask for some advice about where to find recycle shops or secondhand stores that are in your local area. And now you're finally calm enough to start making friends. Well, hopefully you've already joined all of your Facebook groups by this point, so making friends is going to be a little bit easier. In a normal jet year, without the coronavirus. There's usually things like welcome parties at your school. There's usually ALT welcome parties and events in the first few months. That's more than likely not going to happen because of social distancing rules and regulations in your area. Making friends through Facebook, Discord, or other online platforms is going to be your best bet. On the Facebook groups, they may have online events and there may be in-person events as well. Even if you think you're a pretty solitary person, it doesn't hurt to at least connect and go out to lunch with your close ALTs so you make some contact who can be a good resource for you while you're in Japan. And once things start to return to normal, oh my gosh, normal, you'll be able to jump in and do real events with everybody and start making normal relationships that aren't online. All right. I hope that gives you a little bit of peace of mind as to what to expect after you get to Japan. If you have any questions whatsoever, or maybe advice for fellow ALTs, please leave a comment below. And please don't forget to subscribe to this video so that you know when I post my advice about finding a new apartment in Japan. Good luck and holding out in your home countries. It's just a little bit longer until you're gonna get here. So keep dreaming, dreamers.